Okay, step number one. Now, step number two. Okay, seems that, yeah. Okay, so this is the last AI and Values seminar of the year. We were surprised by a proposal by Marta. Very good, happy surprise. Oh, Dr. M. Lenartowicz. And so, yeah, please tell us your seminar. We're happy to see you, M.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, so I wanted to invite you to a discussion of and consideration of a proposal or an approach that I've been developing, which since we are in a seminar stream that is focused on AI and values, it's a particular approach, like maybe more operational and more concrete than some of the philosophical discussions, but basically it's kind of like an approach or attempt at a constructive handling of the question of the value alignment between the AI systems and emergent AGI and beyond and human society, um, to situate the idea. And I know that particularly for our like typical CLEA audience, it might sound quite legalistic, like why licensing all of a sudden. So like let's put it in more bigger picture to start from to see how it fits into the broader landscape. Um, in corporate world, the label that is emerging for this scope of work is usually now responsible AI, but it's like overlapping meaning of the domain. I'm involved in the United Nations project or initiative which is called AI for Good, which is basically labeling the same from a more general society angle. Another term that is probably most suitable for the seminar here is alignment of values between AI and humanity. Also, in a project that I'm involved, and I see Weaver is also here. We are involved also with Kabir Veitas. The term being used, and Olivier, sorry, still not mentioning Olivier. Olivier was a speaker in the last conference of beneficial general intelligence. So beneficial general intelligence is a label used and introduced by Ben Gortel, and more and more it's a new name for what we used to call the global brain. Since the general intelligence is certainly a collective intelligence phenomenon, and we want beneficial outcomes and beneficial orientation to be a core DNA of this domain of interaction. So different labels, and there are probably more, but basically what I was obsessing about, and those who know me from those years at CLEA that we have been there together, like, might remember, that for me it was for a long time the interest. Okay, but how do we bridge the productivity gains from AI, the fact that more and more labor can be automated with the like very concrete and very tangible benefit for humans, which is called money. And that is basically like the financial gains of all that circulate and don't create like even like more condensation that they are currently in, because we are on this trajectory possibly, yes, that whatever we had so far in terms of concentration of capital, if the automation machines, like are serving further concentration, that can become extremely precarious for humanity. So I was trying to locate the place, like within the global system, understood as really an interplay of many different heterogeneous agents, that is realistically positioned such that the idea of distribution of the benefits of automation, or gains of automation, could be distributed. And this is where I like, why, like the path, why I kind of landed on this place called licensing, as an interesting place where innovation can be introduced. You could think that UBI type of redistribution should be best addressed at the nation state level and through taxation. And we could discuss that. I don't think it's a best approach, and this is the alternative approach, or how else to possibly approximate such an outcome, with the footnote that was like what I'm describing now was a path, why I started to think and research those licensing as an instrument. And it's not the full picture of what could be possible through this approach, because when you find a lever and we find an angle, you see that many more systemic outcomes can be embedded in the same place, not only the one that interested me originally. So so this is more kind of like a history of why there, and to locate it in this landscape of goodness, yes, of values and interplay between values and benefits and AI. And you probably, like in the course of the seminar series, you had different, like from different boxes, presentations. So one is in a very cognitive architecture of AI. Yeah. So like when we discuss value alignment, you could think of AI as a cognitive agent, and like take an example of a large language model and try to like tease out like it's like what it really thinks, and how it thinks and how it reasons and so on. And of course, large language models, as impactful as they are only one path of development of AI, and only one possible cognitive architecture. There are many others in development, but this value alignment at the cognitive level would be like equivalent of okay, morality of a person as a like as a being, like if whatever pressures and incentives are constructed around this particular person or a being or a cognitive system, what will it be intrinsically compelled to produce as an output, and where will it disengage, and how it will cooperate or not cooperate with different types of interaction. So that's one probably foundational place where those values are being determined. But I believe not the only possible place. And just to understand that, you might consider that like reasonably moral person, maybe not a saint, but also not a psychopath, can easily be entangled in economic and political and social processes that are not beneficial in their systemic outcomes. And for that, take any like weird corporation that is like really, like producing nonsense at scale, like quite hard, like let's say, unhealthy food with not very pleasant sustainability footprint, in terms of their operation. So you have like a lot of decent people working for such corporations, so their cognitive architectures are okay. They are good people, yes, and all sets of incentives around them, and all sorts of constraints and life situations are such that okay, that this is their job. They are an accountant in this company. So the same apply in same apply to AI. That like there is cognitive architecture, and there is like packaging into social roles and social or socio-economic roles, and interplays between those roles that will generate more and more accumulated outcomes systemically. So like one layer above that cognitive architecture is utility. Yes, so you can have a very, very flexible and general cognitive architecture, which like LLMs are a good example of that. And you have a like good or bad or questionable utility of a system built out of it. Yes, so you have a comprehensive LLM that has read all the philosophical books in the world, and is very well educated on everything, and is basically meant to work as an automated agent that makes people click on ads. Yes, and you see the you see the jump between the cognitive architecture and utility, or like do whatever type of marketing that like funnels and loops people's interest in some predefined patterns. Yes, so utility and cognitive architecture are two different things, and two different places where this goodness or lack of it is generated quite distinctly. Another one, and I will come back to this blue one, the interaction patterns, because my proposal is about that. So how different businesses or deployments, it's called in tech, but basically business interactions or business and public sector interactions in terms of projects, in terms of contracts, in terms of like you sell me this utility packaged in this way and I pay you that, or I do something different. So those are the interaction patterns. I'll define it in a moment. But those are, you see, like all three on the left here are more or less bottom up. Of course they are they are bottom up in like if you just make those two sides. Yes, the top down would be the regulatory and legal side of things, what has to be happening. So this is the regulation on the right, and or what cannot be happening, and this is legislation, and everything else is like people do because they want to do, they build those systems, they want that utility, not that utility, they want to enter this particular contract or that particular contract. Yes, so this is some, like, this is a space of freedom and self-determination, and regulation in the function of this AI for good or responsible AI is an important aspect, but it's more like red line aspect. So what cannot be happening, and regulation basically to be in its proper function is more about preventing harm than steering towards something that society wants more or less in the more or less free, more or less democratic society. I mean, yeah. So so this is the balance that the evolutionary dynamics, which like basically you can apply the general theory of evolution, the way that Francis is teaching it, to interaction of all those layers. Yes. So somebody wanted to say something. Somebody was speaking. Okay. So of course all of that interacts, and the evolutionary dynamic eventually, and I think this has to be said, that to every complex societal, technological, political, economic process, the main this is maybe like a expression of belief here, but the main actor who makes things beneficial in the end is the evolutionary dynamics, not any particular individual solution or thing. Yeah? So the fact that they interact, those levels, those different approaches, they push each other towards something that is more wanted. They select the utilities, the architectures, the interaction action patterns, the regulations. Therefore, that for the rest of the players involved is simply wanted. Yes, and by wanted here you can mean valued, and this is how the overall value accumulates, and the patterns that are not valued get deselected over time. So put in that sense, the interaction patterns are one of the possible level of evolutionary selection that in itself can make the whole landscape more dynamic, because it creates more chains and introduces an additional kind of logical level where the selection can happen, and through what means the selection can happen. So now what I mean by interaction patterns, to make it more concrete, because I think cognitive architecture is more like most understood utility and regulation as well, and this interaction patterns is cryptic. So let's kind of define it better. I can give you a few examples, and there are actually not so many examples, because like in terms of innovation space, I think this innovation space in society in general, not only in AI, is the most underdeveloped innovation space. So we have plenty of products, ideas, systems, and then we have like those formats by which those patterns, those objects interact in society. There is like very, very limited space of those templates. So one of the templates that you can think of is a for-profit company. It's like a compound legal, financial, operational, cultural template. Okay, like you have developed this product, you want to sell it, how do you go about it? You have a very, very compressed template that basically takes half a work, like cognitive work, from you, and structures all your thinking and all your action, from there onwards. Yes. So and another one would be non-profit organization, and another one could be on a different level, let's say open source license. Yes. So this is like, I know it's quite an abstract class, but those patterns, like each of such patterns, if you select this one over that one, there's so much determination already happening within this pattern that you are like, in terms of your systemic outcomes or impacts on the world, you have like shaped half of your impact by the choice of such impact. Yes. So for instance, and this already applies very much to the attempts at the beneficial AI. So when you have, and this is something that we see in the circles of Singularity Net and people involved in this activity. So when you have founders who are basically technical innovators, engineers, computer scientists, and they want to do something beneficial for the society, yes, and they think in terms of this cognitive architecture mostly. They are not, legal scholars or like real legal poets to create new templates in that sense. So they what they will do is that they will see, okay, what templates are there, that will make our activity beneficial, and they by default go for two only, because I think there are two only that are really available for this type of people now, which is let's incorporate as a non-profit organization rather than for profit. We saw it in OpenAI trajectory. Yes, so they wanted to be non-profit at first, and let's make our product, our system, open source. And this on the operational, and societal level, irrespective of the utility and irrespective of the cognitive architecture, this is what they go for in terms of like making sure it's beneficial. So what I'm thinking and working towards is that this they have too little options, and the space of those templates is too limited to a very, very early stages of AI, because what you have, where it applies to is basically in terms of open source, it's the code, the building blocks, the like a cooking ingredients of your AI system. You can make it open source, but it doesn't mean that the products will be packaged out of your system and sold, for big money. That will be accessible, yes. And the people who, like, you can tell them, but you have access to open source to the code, but it's extremely complex, those systems, yes, and most people just simply they will not know what to do with it, and they simply don't know what to do with it. So the fact that you will tell them that it's open source, you can use it, the value is kind of packaged and compounded on a different level, which is products, services. And it's very easy to lock people out, and this is what happens. And the fact that you will make your organization non-profit, it's like in respect to AI, it's too weak a benefit, like that, and it's also problematic because AI systems require a lot of investment, and you have to have investors, and those you probably not finance it from donations only. Those investors want a return of investment, and nonprofits cannot give that, and you have all the circus that we've seen with OpenAI in that respect. It's it's just the logic of those templates that they don't allow to be composed in a way that is like win-win-win-win. That you will, like, people who have inputted money can take out money. Developers have resources and availability, to work on the innovation, and society really benefits out of that. So this nonprofit is limiting, and also the fact that you don't make profit, it's not necessarily like very influential over the middle layers of like, okay, what the system does, like it's just that you also don't make profit on systems that don't sell that well. Yeah, so it's I don't know if it's in itself it's beneficial that you don't make profit. So but this is what I mean by those interaction patterns. Maybe interaction patterns is too vague of a term to mean it's like kind of social formal templates. that people use when they are available and when they are useful. Yes, so there can be many more that are just simply not fitting your needs as a developer or as a customer, and then people like don't use them. So this is a very bottom-up approach. Nobody is forcing you to choose an open source license over like normal closed license, yes, or to become non-profit when you don't want to. But still, like even if it's voluntary, many people go for it. This means that that those patterns, those templates generate benefits that are that people want to have, yes, and they are workable. And what I also wanted to say is that some of those patterns are like structurally composed such that their systemic outcome is the generation of the commons. And here I don't mean commons more like this, governance way, that we have a community that governs something together. We come together. We have like our buildings. It's not that strong, but commons in the digital sense, meaning that that when a particular pattern is applied many times individually. So, for example, you choose a Creative Commons license to make your text available online, that everybody can access it and read it. You make this choice individually, but like the amassing of those individual choices throughout society generates a new class of assets, which is in that case literature or publications, that becomes a commons for everybody to use. So some of those patterns that you could use for deployment, for contracting of systems, could be formulated such that new classes of commons are generated for everybody's use. Doesn't have to mean that your AI system is available for free. If it's very cost intense to produce, doesn't have to mean that you are working for free. But yet, like on the chain between your production of AI and your customer who's using it, there could be interaction patterns that generate systemic commons for humanity. And this is like a design question or research question that I was approaching. Like what kind of patterns could generate new classes of commons? So what I and it's really like a like a design proposal. I'm working on it. I've written a few papers on it, and I'm drafting the whole thing. But for the whole thing to make real sense, it will need the first projects, use cases that will demonstrate that it's viable and it's working. So it's like it has a status of a proposal now. So what I'm proposing is a new class of licensing, and if you are familiar with Creative Commons licenses or open source licenses, they are examples of classes of licenses. Yeah, so this would be a new class of licenses, like this, natively developed for AI deployment. So AI selling and buying or using AI services. And of course, AI is coming into an already complicated landscape of multiple, like it's a very complex process to deploy and sell an AI service. So there's many like places where other licenses are applying. So for instance, if you want to apply all the existing licenses and see where this new set that I'm proposing would fit, you could apply a Creative Commons, meaning like open access to text and data on the level of your model. So you have your for example weights. Like if you use if it's an LLM and you create a particular type of weights in AI, training and configuration, then you could make it accessible based on a Creative Commons license. Then you have open source, which you will apply to your code. And this is something that a lot of developers are applying. There is another class. This is a new class of licenses that is more similar to what I'm thinking about. It's called Rail and Open Rail, and it's restrictive. The idea is how do we apply the legal restrictions, like for example EU AI Act or other similar regulations, and we say what is allowed and what is not allowed to be done with a particular AI product. So this is right. So you have access to the model based on particular restrictions. And what I would like to see is a family of licenses that are more not on the restrictive side, but more tailored for general, like if they will be applied at scale by many projects in many sectors, they could generate those new classes of commons that that will create benefits, like classes of benefits on their own. So this commons, the AI commons license suite would be a set of licenses and profiles that would be looking at the impact of the deployment. Okay, so not utility in itself, but social economic impact of the fact that a particular AI system will be operating in a particular domain. And similarly to Creative Commons, if you are familiar how Creative Commons work, it's a set of standardized license text. And license is something similar to a contract. It's basically telling you that you can use this system on such and such conditions in such and such way, and here are such and such restrictions. And like what is a license suite is that you have templates of those texts that you can basically copy and change and have your own custom contract or license, which is fine, but then you cannot use the icon of this particular type of license. So the fact that you use the icon makes it very nicely recognizable that okay, so those are the rules of play. So the power of such instruments is that when you have a set of documents with this iconography, which of course, if it takes off and is adopted, like more broadly, it becomes a vocabulary, it becomes a grammar. Yeah. So you see this icon and you know the rules of play and interaction with this particular system. And also like Creative Commons, for this to work, the set of templates, it cannot be owned by anybody, so it always requires like a governance body or committee that curates the texts and updates the text. And for example, you will have like AIC version 1.7, and you like put that and then it's like, okay, so like if you put this icon and this version, this means that this particular template of license is governing this particular deployment and is a part of this particular contract. I hope it's understandable so far. So in this chain of from the development of AI to how it's working on the ground, this whole suite would be applicable to the so-called deployment layer. And what is a deployment layer? It's where the product or service is being used, is made available to be used, and is being used. So it's this kind of interaction space between the customer, or it doesn't have to be like end customer though, because many of those systems are, like composed in those chains of production and usage, so value chains. Yeah, so you have like a foundation model, which is like a general basic cognitive architecture. Then you have like somebody packages into a particular product, which is more generic. Then somebody else uses this particular generic product to create a particular service. Then the service is, let's say, being sold, like somebody is participating in a public procurement by some government and makes it available to as a part of some engine in public services, let's say. Yeah? And then this public service is selling something like so it can be a very long chain and quite heterogeneous. And but this is whole like deployment layer. And license, like there is this legal distinction between contracts and license, because license is like that I make something available to you on those particular terms. But the license is usually, like, not usually, it is a like contract, like legal scholars would say it's not a contract, but it's like a property of an artifact. And then when you sell it, the license as an object is a part of your contract. So usually you will have it either in terms of service, like connected to the terms of service, or you will have it like embedded when it's like an online service, or when it's a service that has API that other services can connect to. It will be in the terms of APIs. You have different like agreements. You have master service agreements. So like all sorts of like legal zoo around that. But the license is deployed through contract. Like so like I mean the license is an object within this larger space. And this licensing at the deployment layer would be binding concrete actors in this chain of value. So the fact that the particular system is available in a particular terms, it becomes binding. It's not binding. You see, like it's not a binding through regulation. You are not obliged to participate in any chain of value, but if you want to use it, it's binding to you. So it's like same like with terms of service, which creates a completely different level and layer of enforcing alignment. Not so much by like autonomous AI, in itself, but alignment of all actors that use, sell, buy, develop AI. Yeah, that they can basically demand alignment from each other. Okay, if you enter a contractual relation with me, here are the obligations. Yes, and we agree on those. And those and by applying to the deployment layer, I'm focusing on obligations that are more operational, meaning those projects they have some parameters in how they are conducted. So, for instance, who can participate in this particular project or its outcomes? What is happening with the money involved? Who can see what? What are the environmental impacts of what we are doing here? Who can oversee? Who can like be in a government role and so on? So those are the operational parameters of those deployments. And the idea is that like in this spirit of evolutionary fit, that it will fit everything else. Yes, so you have different legal frameworks, we have different license frameworks, we have different types of beings, like entities with different values, and and by flexibility and modularity of the framework, the idea is that they will get, in this case, 6 new, verbs into their vocabulary by which they interact, because it's the ideas of 6 different value licenses. License patterns, and I will maybe now tell you a bit about each, and I wonder if it would be maybe make sense that we pause here, have a small discussion till now, and then I'll show you rest, because I like discussion. But let me finish with this top level presentation of the classes of those licenses. So the license which is geared to generate value commons is the type of license that if I sell you an AI service and it makes you, and it's happening really a lot, it makes you save, let's say, 90% of your normal operational costs on this particular thing, by the fact that I sell you this AI. And okay, so let's take a very concrete example. You have a corporation that continuously maintains, develops, upgrades a very large IT system. And I'm quite close to one of such cases, like really empirically. So it's not a fantasy, and it's a large thing. It costs hundreds of millions, throughout years. And let's say it's a 300 developers, effort. And yearly it costs really a lot of millions of euro. And then comes a proposal, okay, because it's mostly repetitive work what they are doing, and it's important to, because now this is the condition, but soon it will not be the condition. But it's mostly repetitive. It's comparable. We can really automate that. We bring a swarm of AI agents with coding capabilities and mutual checking and auditing capabilities. They will do the whole thing in 3 weeks. So okay, it will take us 3 months to implement them, but since then, your cost of running this whole operation will be negligible. So what it creates savings. And if you agreed to enter this contract with me based on the license which is using this value commons profile, we would agree that the savings are being redirected into a beneficial outcomes for the people impacted by this automation, and defining who are the beneficiaries would be, because it's a bottom-up system, would be up to us, in this contract, as long as it's voluntary contractual thing, but because it becomes standardized, those parameters become comparable in society. So soon the general civic society sees, okay, those guys are paying this class of people, those guys are paying everybody, those guys are paying themselves only, and we have customer choices, to make based on this information. So it creates a transparency about the financial flows out of savings. Another example would be that it's not savings. It's revenue, meaning okay, I'm selling access to my wonderful competitor of ChatGPT. You pay 22 euro, just like you would pay for GPT, but 5 euros out of that get redirected to a UBI scheme, and so this is also the same mechanism. And then given that those systems are already comparable, you have a customer choice to make. Do you use a system which is based on this license, or do you use just commercial license system? you have more choice, and those choices can create new interesting dynamics. So this is the value commons. The transparency commons would be creating. This is more kind of like regulatory compliance thing, but voluntary, that you disclose particular types of information about how your system works, what kind of incidents are happening, and so on. So once you standardize these disclosures into something that is machine readable and crawlable across systems, you get something similar to Creative Commons type of effect, but not at the text and information level, but particularly about how systems are behaving, and you get the comparability of those parameters that otherwise they are just simply not accessible. So if there is a transparency based profile of a system, you know that civil society is is watching, yes, and it's viewing and can see, evaluate, protest, whatever they will do with the information about how this particular system is behaving. Sustainability commons would be this transparency commons logic plus particular commitments and targets applied to environmental impact. So an AI deployment, let's say a data center. A data center making their services available based on this license to an AI developer. They would be obliged to disclose very detailed information about the environmental costs and impacts of every computational unit, like flops or whatever the unit they provide, and have a transparently available ongoing improvement commitments that by particular time, for the particular class of operations, those targets will be improving, and you see it transparently as society. What are the effects of this process over time, and you can compare different players, yes, on the same in the same framework. Access commons would be committing to make allow access to a particular system for a particular classes of users. So this is a variation of a system that would be just for free, but it's not always sustainable to be just for free for everybody. So what you create is that, okay, I'm selling this service, it's expensive to develop, it's expensive to maintain, but I'm making 20% of capability, of support, of hours on GPU, whatever metrics you will commit to those and those public interest users. So for example, to public universities, to so it's always tailored to a particular system. So I'm being abstract because it always depends on what you are doing. But this particular service, it's accessible in this and this particular fraction to this and this particular class of users on lower cost basis or for free. And this becomes a license-based property of this system. Then reciprocity commons, there is quite a lot of work in this direction. So it's kind of this idea is incorporating something that many people are speaking about, that the so-called upstream contributors. Yes, so people whose contributions have been used at some point for the particular AI to develop, there is paying back to them, and in this license you can make it very visible and operationalize it very clearly. Who, like, what, it's like working per category. So it's not the idea of like accountancy per click or something like that. But let's say something like Spotify, yes, as an example. It introduces an AI generated type of music. And then you can have you can have artists like opting into that okay, let this AI generated part of Spotify learn from me, and then I'm included as Spotify artists that are getting dividends out of that. Yeah, so that could be also with visual artists. There's a lot of these examples now. And governance commons would be the every one of those licenses are a kind of a governance instrument. But when there would be a specific governance commons license applied, this means that this particular deployment, particular contract or interaction between players is governed in a way that is obligatory by the means of this license. So an example I have, kind of simplistic, but I think as a good illustration. Let's say that I produce a camera system, like surveillance system for neighborhoods, for neighborhood safety. Yes, and it like installs cameras in every corridor, in every building, and analyzes what's going on, detects possibly unsafe patterns of behavior or some incidents that look dangerous, and then has escalation path, can notify the police, can notify somebody else, can like run an alarm, like, I don't know, like pour cold water on you or whatever, like you imagine the system doing. Yes. So if the system had this governance license, governance profile, that would mean that like on the license level, there is a prescribed governance process which unlocks particular or modifies particular functionalities within the system. So, for example, there is a mandatory body of like residence committee that they together can configure what happens in this situation, what happens in this situation, what happens in this situation. For example, if the facial recognition, like all the capabilities of my system are actually unlocked in this location or not, they have to decide. They have to agree as this committee, and only then the system is working. If not, then it's not accessible, and it creates within the license this hook of decision making, which again, depending on the system and on consequences, you can point to many different bodies who can decide on that, so for instance, because it's also intended as something you can mix and match. So let's say I have a computing network that makes a certain class of like very heavy computations accessible only under the profile of sustainability commons, but I have no clue how to operationalize correctly the parameters that would be acceptable for scholars that actually know anything about sustainability requirements. Yes. So what I would do, I would run it under the combined profile of S and G, and I would delegate the sustainability requirements to some research body that actually knows what makes sense. Yes, and I would ask them to have this governance oversight function over those parameters. So something like that. would it make sense to have a short discussion? Because I have like more content about every particular profile, but not sure at this moment if it makes sense to go into details, or maybe you would like to discuss it on a more general level. So if there's any questions or comments or statements.
So, are there questions? I mean, I think it's a nice idea to have a quick break in this and open the floor for questions. Are there questions?
Well, one question I have is, wasn't AI supposed to reduce the complexity? Well, what I see is such an explosion in all kind of very complicated protocols for different things. How many people will be able to really smartly decide which of those protocols, which of those commons, which of those things they will choose? It seems kind of hopeless that people will actually intelligently choose one of those, and instead of just taking up the default.
Yeah. The thing is that that complexity increases intelligence, yes, and if you locate, I really believe that we have bottlenecks in the global system intelligence, because some places in the system are too simplistic than the others, yes, and if you make the vocabulary like larger, if you make this like the set of like rules of syntax larger, like more combinations are possible, and for every new development you have like I'm quite sure that this level of complication is needed for AI to fit the society better. Yeah, and then like if you are asking if AI isn't meant to decrease complexity for the like individual mind, sure, because it's like like it's a logical system that like soon enough you will have an AI agent that will set it up for you. Yeah, so of course, like for users, it will be like it will ask you a set of questions. Okay, would you like that, or would you like that? Would you like that? Would you like that? And you will get a license profile for yourself. So in that sense, AI will like, yeah, but you see, like it reduces complexity for individual cognitive agents, but takes the complexity into itself, yes, and reasoning, and it's like it's a reasoning path of the socio-economic interactions, which are in itself very complex. Like if you go through like what legal scholars or like economists are like debating and working on, it's like a lot of those things. Yeah? So it's as complex as code development, just on a different level. Yeah. So you offload code development to a class of AI agents. You can offload it to a class of like different agents. This type of legal like thing, but it has to be designed, because and particularly it has to become standardized for the systemic effect to accumulate. Yeah. So and this is the lesson of Creative Commons and open source, that by classes of licenses, recognizable classes of licenses, those general effects can scale and accumulate, because we could sit and develop between ourselves a very nuanced and unique contract, but it will be just between us, yes. And now like those clauses, if they repeat it, and people know, okay, there is this clause applicable as well, so this means I can find this and this information from you, then it creates a different level of dynamics. So like more generally, society is a very complex system. and economics is a very complex system. So yeah, so of course, like if you try to create something compatible with it, you end up with a complex interface as well.
Well, what I would suggest is to develop a kind of an ontology of what you call these clauses, of these kind of elements out of which a license is built. And if that ontology has not too many parts and they are clearly defined, and people might say, I want A and X and K, but not D and E. That might be a way to do it.
Yes. So it has to be very intuitive in like composing it. Yes. So like you take this, you can take this, you can. And yeah, and I have some more complications how they can interact, yes, but it's basically the like there is like 6 verbs, let's say, and then how do you make combinations of that is the next step. But they have to be very crispy, each of them, yes, for that to make sense, yeah.
We have a question in the chat. I'm going to read it out for the recording, and then you can answer. So thanks for this presentation. Zan says, drop this if it seems off topic for you, but I'd value your thoughts on whether you see these 3 intersections as generating what you call new patterns of commons, so new classes of licensing. First, with cooperative structure up front that allows for new entrants or co-owners. Second, with smart contracts, structure evolving, can be recalculated in process. And third, with your UBI work, structure evolving, using number 2 to reward basis on services rendered. What do you envision the ideal pilot project?
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, I will start from the second one because it's the most clearly linking to what Francis said. Smart contracts, for instance, are the formula how to encode and how to operationalize those things with the use of AI, that it becomes easy. Yeah? So when each of such license patterns becomes a smart contract, you can program the interaction on the level of a blockchain and encode those consequences in that way. But smart contracts and like all this blockchain infrastructure is also like a programming layer. Yeah. So you have to have ideas of those more abstract template patterns of what you want to program into smart contracts for them to become really smart and to create an interesting result. So what I'm seeing, because we are quite close now to those like Web3, blockchain, industries and so on. There is this overwhelming sense that smart contracts are such a flexible infrastructure, and people will say, oh, you can encode whatever, you can build whatever you want, like whatever value chain patterns you can think of. And the problem is that what people think of to encode there are, again, repetition of what they know. So what you end up with, and it's not true about all Web3 projects, and those cooperatives that Zan is mentioning is a different example, but the majority of the logic of Web3 is basically decentralized, distributed Wall Street on the internet, because people they buy and sell token the way people buy and sell shares, and this. Why? Because we have those compound patterns of thinking about social. It's really embedded in culture, values, operations, legal aspects of it. It's like one gestalt, yes. And then you have a level where you could potentially encode it and automate it, but to know what to encode, you need this innovation of different patterns. So absolutely, smart contracts is the way where to actually embed and program those ideas. With UBI work, structure evolving, using to reward based. So definitely, like you need an accountancy system for distribution of those UBI like patterns, and smart contracts and blockchain is wonderful, potentially wonderful for that. Yes, if we use it this way, and with cooperative structure up front that allows for new entrants, co-owners. I'm not sure I understand this part of the question. Zan, because it's
I was envisaging something much simpler, like Rainbow Grocery in San Francisco. And it's this impressive, long-standing cooperative grocery store where all the employees are co-owners and there's a long history of, how you create these kinds of cooperatives. But the cooperatives evolve because new players enter. But it's a much simpler idea than the smart contracts.
Yeah. So you see, like cooperatives, this is an example of this type of a pattern. Yes. So you have a new formula, and then those cooperatives are a natural place where if they will do something with AI, they will want those more open, more common generating patterns of, like who benefits, who access, how do we as a cooperative, can input the like, for example, creative inputs into AI system that then regenerate something new out of it. So I think it's like this is a natural like partner. Yes, those cooperative kind of collaborative commons based projects and groups. Definitely. Though, like not only, yes, because for instance, open source sounds like that, but, like quite mainstream, quite commercial, big corporate developments of code are more and more contributing to open source and using open source because they conclude it just simply is easier for them, and in the end it's more beneficial than keeping things close and proprietary. So cooperatives are natural, but not the only like target target environment for that. Anyone else?
I have a question, which you might have already answered in the beginning, but I'd like to come back to this. So you're suggesting these licenses as seemingly voluntary, right? And I wonder why. Why should we keep them voluntary?
So how would you make it involuntary? So like that's the question, because like what is involuntary is things that are introduced by governance in the function of regulation. Yes, and what you want to regulate is usually something like, like you want to prevent harm that is unquestionably harmful. Yes, when you want to regulate more, and for example say not only that people shouldn't kill each other but they should be nice to each other, what you see, and we see it everywhere, like what enters is politics. Yes, so you will have one group of people on one side of the political spectrum saying yes we want this goodness, and another one will be saying, oh, this is fascistic to say you want goodness, and what if people understand goodness differently. Yes, so there is only that much that you can do through regulation that actually everybody will accept. And there is much more and like much larger space that people can commit to if it makes sense to them. Yeah? But this doesn't mean that like many of the actual regulatory requirements would not be actually implemented through those licenses. Yes. So if for instance there is a particular requirement of transparency on a governmental level, by choosing this license that deals with transparency, you can very nicely fit into that and plus. Yeah, so you can show like even more than is required. So I see regulation as the like a shared minimum that is acceptable on a like political level. Yes, and the licensing is more like free market dynamic, that you don't have to produce anything, you don't have to buy anything, you like it's in that sense voluntary. Yes, you don't have to sell anything, you don't have to work, but you like anyhow people do, and this is one of the patterns that hopefully makes sense how to go about it. Is this convincing for you, or you would prefer for such frameworks to be stronger?
I think I would prefer them to be stronger. I mean, of course, you don't have to produce anything, right? But I mean, we do have strict regulations on how food is produced, for example, right? And this doesn't force me to produce food now, but if I do, I have to meet certain standards, right? I think it might help with the kind of ontological question that Francis threw up, right? So the kind of complexity that comes about. So if this were in the, I don't know, in the EU realm, you know, enforced such a licensing, then it could be communicated of what it means, and it could be more broadly educated. Because I take his point that we will not read the fine print of, you know, all these various different licenses, and as nice as iconography is, I might not know what these icons are actually saying, and you know, it's going to be hard for me to grasp, especially since there is this kind of plug and play mechanism where you know you figure out the details, you know, bottom up, as you said, right? So if I save 100 million euros because of your AI, then the two of us discuss where some of that saving goes, right, in some kind of societally helpful way. Now, if that is not kind of regulated, that it seems very very opaque to the user, right? And that is a worry I have with this, right? I mean, we're just getting yet more fine print, more things that we just click the button and just say yes to whatever because we're not going to read it anyways.
Yeah, so it's not on the level of terms of use that you click as an end user and you don't know what you have agreed to. It's more, and it's a good illustration for what you say. Because we do have those precedences. We do have those examples, and we see how they are working. So let's say you have a Creative Commons license, meaning that you know you write an article, it becomes an open access article. Doesn't mean that people can copy your text and publish it as theirs, but they can read it, and you don't have to protect the access to the file. Yeah, so it's not open access to articles. It's not a regulated thing by government. It's not required, but yet, you know, scholars do it. Yes, they put their text on academia. They put it here, there. If they have a choice on the journal, you know, site, they will prefer open access over not open access. And it's not required by the government to do it. It wasn't introduced by government regulation, but it's still spread and stabilized as a practice that people prefer. So this type of a path. And now how it connects to regulation. It can connect, but it's a bottom-up development, yes? Because for instance, you will have a public funding of research, and because this licensing model has been already established, some public funding of research can say, okay, we are financing your research, but under the condition that your publications will be public access. Yeah. So there is this interplay and there is this uptake, and there is no reason why, you know, like a particular country and particular jurisdiction wouldn't say, this licensing is actually required for this particular, you know, thing. You know? But because it anyhow needs to stabilize as something workable, and I think to stabilize as something workable, you need to test it on willing, you know, projects that actually that make sense to them, because any interaction pattern that doesn't make sense to the players will just simply not spread, you know. So and then okay, it is there. Then, you know, those regulators that are dealing, for example, with environmental impacts, at some point they might require, okay, but this profile is required, you know, from everybody. But because this profile will be already there, they can actually point to it and speak to it. So it's really it's weird because it's very frequently overlooked layer in society where innovation can actually happen and spread, but those innovations happening in this layer are very impactful. Yeah, so you have innovators thinking about products and systems, and the rest seems to them, okay, all this legal stuff, yes. And then you have regulators from top, from the governments, like like looking at this jungle and saying, okay, what can we actually regulate? But if those patterns of deployments will stabilize into patterns of licenses, even regulators can point to them and say, this one makes sense, this one we will fund, or this one will prohibit if it's not there. So it's more kind of like self-organization, idea. And if you were a government or a king, you could say, okay, I will require that, but you have to be that to say that. And United Nations, the project that I'm in, this AI for Good, is not a regulatory body. So it's really thinking of, okay, how can we stimulate the global society to develop and value the usage of AI, for good. And it's like United Nations is like really, it's really like interested in stimulation of bottom-up self-organization process, and of course, highlighting good practices and propagating them, promoting them, and so on. But really, like in this like free society, self-organizing dynamic, this is the politically viable angle that they have. And then what you have is, like real top-down requirements of United Nations, but this is the General Assembly that says, okay, like you shall not kill, the other nation, and you see like enforceability of that as well. So it's as a regulatory body, it's not like in such a strong position as nation states, of course.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I just ask a quick follow-up for this. So, these licensing that you're suggesting seem to be impacting the kind of benefit from the producer, right? So the producer is selling things, and rather than just getting all the cash out of this, they now abide by extra rules or commitments of various sorts, right? And you suggested that they might do this because users will actually prefer it, right? But of course, for users to prefer this really needs to be something simple enough. I mean, we're coming back to Francis's point, right? So it needs to be something simple enough that they know, okay, these licenses are actually licenses I support, rather than just yet another icon and yet another thing to click away, right?
Yeah.
So how would you go about? I mean, I fully take your point that the United Nations is not a governmental body in that sense, and it can't regulate that way, and there's lots of benefit to this. I take this point, but then we need to have some kind of impetus for the user and for the seller in this case to kind of abide by these licenses. So where do you see that coming in?
Yeah, so this strongest regulation, like feedback loop, that it would be already pushed by the customers that we want that, will only happen when the licenses are recognizable and marketed, promoted as a thing. Yeah? So if people don't know about it, they will not know that they want to value that. Yeah? So it's definitely, it's something like when you have fair trade symbol, or bio food symbol, or open source. Yeah. So like you have whole, like classes of customers that are actually sensitive to this marker and will make choices based on this marker. And make decisions, like, for example, in software, if this particular provider is not open source, we are not dealing with them. So of course, like it's as tricky as introducing a new product, this type of an idea that it will only work like fully when it takes off, that people adopt it, recognize it, and it's attractive, it's comprehensible, it's actually wanted, and so on, and it creates this feedback loop. Yeah. So in terms of this value redistribution, I think that this one, if done properly, could propagate very beautifully, because this is the most understandable one, and also lacking in this global system. Yeah. So if there was a label, this AI contributes to UBI, and if it was promoted, coherently, had a specific meaning that is standardized, and had a few initial players that are strong enough to stand behind it. Yes, like big AI system, like saying, okay, we are using this label, but it's not our label. It's our shared commons label, because this system is also using that, and that is also using that. It could this one could take off quite fast, I believe. But yeah, it's as tricky, I think, as introducing a label is as tricky as introducing a globally recognizable product, yes, that people know and choose. Yeah. Well, I would like to see it happening. How to go about it is be more tricky.
Okay, are there further questions at this point, or should we press on? I can't see any hands raised, so maybe you continue it.
Yeah, so just quickly, it's not that much. I don't want to, because I gather it's already complicated, so I don't want to exaggerate with this complication. So I have here I just have each of them explained again, but I will send you the link if you want to read more. You can read more. Each of those licenses profile. Yeah, so this is like a kind of notation, like an approximation to notation. It's probably not catchy enough in this form. So each of them is like a thing, a separate thing that has its own parameters and its own contour. And then what you have, you can mix and match them for particular products or projects. So this is an example. You have a general purpose LLM chat platform, and like, let's say it chooses, and it can choose, yes, any combination of profiles it chooses. So we took the transparency profile, accessibility profile, and governance profile, and this means that it has, like, by the fact that it's kind of displaying those icons, this means that there is a recognizable format, publicly accessible, of files and output data that inform general public and whatever, like crawling machine, learning entities about the exact operation of this system, that a particular percentage of usage is dedicated and allocated to a particular classes of users. So when you have, like, for example, this A profile, you will have a standardized file which says which category of usage, what category, users, and what category of usage, and it's committed through this format. And then you have a governance commons, and this identifies the governing bodies, committees, and so on, with the particular class of decisions that are being made for this system. So I think the strongest example of what kind of classes of decisions there are for AI systems is something that is called sunset decision, meaning who can kill the system and decide that it's actually, to be, like, the plug is to be taken off, and it would be nice to have, like, visible, governance commitment to say, this system is running under this profile, and the committee to make this particular decision is that. No, and you have it visible, and you have an interplay between those governance processes and bodies. So this is like, like any combination of those 6 you can apply to any system. To complicate things further, I have been also playing with, because it's value chains. So you could also, as a provider, say that anybody, and this is like the notation of those dots. So the middle dot is me, my system, and the dot on the right is anything who will repackage my system into something new. So for example, when I deploy my system under this V, meaning like this UBI type of it's not only UBI, but it's like value, redistribution profile. This means that whatever I sell, a percentage of that goes to the particular group of people or class of beneficiaries, and whoever takes my system and incorporates it into their system is obliged to do the same. So, and this is something I'm kind of, hoping that Ben Gartel is getting interested in, because he didn't dismiss it at the first listening. So, in his approach to the it's particularly can be particularly impactful for developers of the foundation models, meaning engines, like cognitive architectures of AI that could, if successful, inform the whole whole new industries of AI agents, AI systems, AI services, and so on. Because if you apply something like that, it would be okay, take it even for free, if you want, it could be like that, yes. But when you sell a service, when you sell a product, provide a service using this engine, you have to contribute, the same percentage of value to the same fund, yes. So you could and as a developer, you could choose to bind those so-called downstream, downstream operators to use your system only in this particular way. You could also say, okay, it only applies to downstream, system. Let's say I make mine for free. I don't have to say I don't have to report on this value redistribution on my level, because I'm a nonprofit. I'm just, I just simply make it out there, and it's there. So it doesn't make sense for me to account for what is happening with the value streams here, but I make it available to everybody who will apply this license in their operation. So this is the meaning of the dots on the right. There is also a meaning of the dots on the left, which is upstream conditions. I will only take suppliers who have this and this particular profile applied to their services. So you have let's say, because it's close to heart, this example, like a decentralized computing network, and you could apply this the sustainability profile that any node in the systems is called a node. So any provider of computing resources that actually can connect to my network has to operate under the same profile of sustainability commons, and therefore they will have to report on it individually in some simple interface, automated. Everything hopefully will become automated, and then I report on the same on the level of the entire network. Yes. If it's a peer-to-peer decentralized network, you could also say that it's actually only applied to those suppliers, because the network is in itself just a combination of them. So if every one of them is sustainable, the network is sustainable, we don't have to introduce this level of reporting on the level of my system. I'm just accepting the nodes, the inputs that are sustainable. You could also say okay, I'm imagine that there's dot on the left and dot on the right, and empty in the middle. If it's pure peer-to-peer, I accept compute providers that are sustainable, and I service compute usage that is sustainable and reports within the same profile. So, and again, it's really a grammar. So you can express in it what you actually want, what beneficial profile you want to contribute to the world, on the level of usage of your system, and you use this as a means of expressing that. So you can, and then you can have the same LLM, it's just, but it's like a random combination. Yes. So before it had doubts in the middle only, but it could only also say, for instance, that transparency is required from all suppliers, upstream, and access is required from all operators downstream. You say it like that. If it becomes like a standard way of expressing those things, it becomes understandable to everybody as a set of rules of play. So yeah, and I think I will stop here in terms of the input.
Right, so the floor is open for questions again.
If there are any.
You seem to have everybody convinced.
Okay, so let's implement. Okay. Yeah, Francis is saying it's too complicated, but we have been working on this global brain idea, for what? How many years? Or how many years ago? And it's all about the rules of interaction, yes? And when you have intelligent rules of interactions, you have intelligent patterns emerging. And the rules of interactions that we have, globally, and I will exaggerate a little bit here, is like buy and sell. Yeah? Okay, and in science side. And this is a class of rules of interactions that I would like to kind of see coming into this whole pot, and I think those rules can generate the beneficial outcomes on a different level than simple utility of those products.
Francis, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of an older form of AI, the more symbolic form of AI, where you can define formal rules and formal categories, and where you can define kind of ways of propagation from one level to another. And I was reminded, I don't remember whether Marta met Marco Rodriguez, who was a member of our research group before Malta was there, and who afterwards developed a quite sophisticated system of a kind of a semantic network with computation going from one thing to another. And he had a whole architecture which apparently lots of people have been using because he became quite famous in this technical domain. And I remember one of the early applications he thought of which he worked with Carlos Gershenson, was a kind of an collective intelligence system where people would vote for things and delegate their votes to different people. And I thought that that might be the kind of formal framework in which you could express these kind of things. Kind of a distributed rules that say which things go from where to where under which conditions. So when I say it's complicated if you ask people to think about all these things in kind of legal terms. But if we could automate it and we could have a kind of an ontology where things are well defined and where the AI helps you to choose the right one for you, then I think it may work.
Yeah. So I'll have a look at this research again. I remember something like that indeed, but this kind of carry on condition. I think it's quite common. Yes, it's even in Creative Commons in itself that you can bind the repeated usage of the same artifact, that it will the same license will apply. So it's indeed kind of clustering and carrying on the particular pattern. But I'll have a look and also.
The problem I see is with a license like Creative Commons, there's a text that you license for certain usages. Well, now it's a bundle of processes that you are licensing, and different people will use different processes and have different inputs and different outputs. That makes it much more complicated, but potentially also smarter if you manage to control that flow, regulate that flow in an intelligent way. but
Yes,
it's
yes, yes.
not a trivial exercise to do it.
The complexity is increased indeed from one artifact, like it was even, like when you have a text, fine, nice, flat thing. Yes, when you have code on open source, you already have the rules of production, contribution. Yes, and now it's like applied to deployment. Deployment is not only usage, but basically like whole transaction around it. Yes, so okay, you will be using my system, you will be paying me this and that. I will be doing that. You will be doing that. You can do that, I cannot do that, all sorts of like kind of like this interplay. Yes, and the system like in itself is also an actor in that, because it's like yeah, it can do that, and it would be nice that the system actually like accepts as its own governance the license on which it's operating. It would make more sense. Yes, because it's like it knows its own and kind of bottom conditions. Okay, I'm working here, like it's more like job description. Okay, I'm running in this particular context based on this license. So those are my boundary parameters. Yes, and definitely something to be out of. And it's this system is very easy to like for AI to understand, because it's like modular and like like it's something that the human minds have more problems with than AI. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of something like my generic formalization is what I call condition action rules. If certain conditions are fulfilled, then certain actions can be taken, and you can make whole networks of these condition action rules, which is also, let's say, in traditional AI that was quite well developed. Now you can add the more neural type of AI in the sense that you can have conditions that are fuzzy, that you can kind of say if it is to some degree this or to some degree that. I think that it should be possible, but it will be a lot of work, and somebody will have to program it, and hopefully we can convince some smart AI programmers to build things like that.
I think that the most work is actually taking a few projects and running a pilot, like a set of pilots that they actually on the ground interact based on those rules, and those rules make sense. They are, enforceable, they work, they regulate the relations like on the ground in real life correctly. That there's like the things to be reported are actually possible to be reported, they are intelligible and so on. Because once you have that and you formalize it, in the license terms, feeding it to LLM and saying, okay, like program that, like if it's logical. If it's not logical, it will break down. But it's logical and it's working. That this should be easy. Yeah. So, but making something actually workable on the ground. This is that's the like the process that just needs some work. Yeah. It's not a fantasy, but this one is actually workable. And I suppose there have been many more ideas of licenses that didn't take off than the ones we know and are golden standards of how things can be changed on the level of the license. Yeah, so it's yeah.
We have another question in the chat from Orion. I'm going to read it again. In a public space, do you think the model can work for non-AI use cases, even analog use cases?
I suppose so. Yes, because. Like, for example, I would like to see this, for example, value redistribution applied to all industrial relations, not only AI. It's easy, like, for example, this one is easier to implement on the AI front than any other type of commercial relations, because it's easier, I suppose, for people to agree to divide the kind of like a cake that is like still baking, and like, okay, so it's like easier to share something that's like the profits that are like still projected for the next year than the ones that you have this year on your account. Yeah. So in that sense, like industrial processes that are already established, every cent there is, like people are already, like they know what is theirs, and all of a sudden asking them to share that. Possible. I would like to see it, but when like a completely new game changer comes in, the one that says I will automate it, at a negligible cost, it will scale, zero, cost on scaling, it will just do it by itself. It's much easier to to agree to sharing that. Yeah, but in general, it would be nice that like this template then kind of like generalize into other processes. Completely possible. I also suspect that like all those other processes will become AI moderated processes in some way, because and in that sense it can very nicely, any organized process, once the AI comes in, it can come in with this pattern of licensing, and it will kind of like regulate it somehow.
One usage I can imagine using such a system is patent law, like patents that you can, and you describe the patent also through a license. Everybody that wants to use this patent will follow this and this and this. Yes, so at least in certain patents it can work pretty smoothly. It's much more general than AI usages, but I see, okay, you are going to make profit from this patent, okay, you can use it, but like 10% of the profit that you make will be directed to this or that, or this usage of patent requires certain supervision from this or that, and it can be easily applied to patent rule.
Yeah. Do you think it makes more sense to think about it like from the start as a generic set of licensing rather than AI licensing?
Actually, I don't know. It might. Once you start it from a specific community like AI developers, it will be as easier to gain traction than to involve something, a category of transactions like patent law, which is very, 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 very wide and complicated. So traction will be less obvious. So maybe start small, and okay, starting small. AI is not anymore starting small.
Oh, yeah, but it is a good question, yes, because indeed, like, and Orion is right that I don't know, like maybe that could be a more clever path, except that there is even less platforms where you can propose it, because now I know that I'm proposing this, like where I'm proposing this at AI for Good, at Beneficial General Intelligence, somewhere else maybe, yes, because they are like actually like human systems that are asking this question, how can we make the thing beneficial, and where do you come with the proposal, make everything beneficial? Some probably ethics conferences, yes.
Like in the area of AI, I can see something which is like maybe a bit forward-looking about AI agents that become autonomous or semi-autonomous, and when they apply for a job, they can present, okay, every work that I do is such and such and such. My salary will be distributed in such and such manner. So that can be, it's like it's a fun idea. I don't know if it can now be applied, but
yeah, that would be very nice. Yes, that they have a profile, yes? Kind of like a personality profile.
And then maybe certain persons will want to use it as well.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe we should call it not AIC, but IC, like Intelligence Commons, yes? And then it will generalize to everything.
Yes, so it can be AI or HI, yes.
Or any other I, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. A point to consider indeed. Or artistic intelligence, Orion, yes? That you make your art accessible on particular conditions. Weaver, you are muted. Yeah.
I said artistic or animal even.
Yeah, okay, let's license everything on this. Yeah, it might be a good.
Are there any further questions? We were reaching the end of our time, so do we have last questions? No, then let us thank our speaker for this very, very nice presentation. Yeah, a lovely discussion. Thank you all for participating. And with this, I'll stop the recording and end the seminar. Thanks again, Em.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, everybody.